Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us. A warm welcome. This is episode 24 of Football Then and Now. And Waiting in the Wings returning for a second consecutive week. Whilst Chris is off, he's still ill. So we send our best wishes to Chris. It's Mr. John Scott. I'm going to pull in right now. Joining me for episode 24. I'll just switch us over, John. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
2 weeks in a row. Substitute only to the main man, Chris. I'm only on standby.
Perfect. Now, he has sent me a bit of, as part of a segment that he obviously does on this day in football history, a player who you had at Tottenham, but I'm going to just obviously pump the graphic in. It's Mr. Teddy Sheringham. On this day, the 16th of August, 1992, scored the first televised goal of the Sky Sports Premier League era. This is the one you want me to bring in. It ties in perfectly because he had 2 stints at Tottenham, of course. Teddy Sheringham. And this was just prior to going to Spurs. He went on to go to you guys, didn't he?
Yeah. He was quite the player. I love Teddy Sheringham. Obviously, when I was a kid, he was like the main man up front. Obviously, we had a very brief but amazing run with Klinsmann, but it was only 1 year. People forget that. But this was the next best thing was good old Teddy Sheringham. And I do remember this. I remember that night well, as a matter of fact, when we got him. And, he became quite the icon at Tottenham. As you said, 2 stints. He come back when Glenn Hoddle was back at the Lane. And unfortunately, I would say by the time we got him, although he got Player of the Year for Man United the year before, he was at the age of 34, getting on to 35, and at that time we had Les and Teddy up front, who were 34 and 35 combined as our strikers. But good to see a bit of Teddy there.
I've put the wrong photo up. I've just put Ramon Vega up. I've just ruined.
I was going to say, can we point out that Stu has not told me anybody that's coming up? I'd like to point that out. This is not a pre-work thing.
I've just gone and ruined it. And that man, right? I'll tell you something because I've ruined it because I've cocked it. But I'll say it right now. Ramon Vega. We were at Goodison in November 1997 against you guys. So you had Christian Gross in charge, who we spoke about last week, actually, briefly. Christian Gross.
Yes, yeah.
Ramon Vega scored, and David Ginola as well. It wasn't a good day at the office for Evan. I was there for that in 97 with Chris.
Yeah, wow.
I've ruined it now, but I'll put him back on after.
But Psych myself up for Ramon.
Even when Teddy Sheringham was at West Ham, more latterly as well. I mean, he played some good stuff, didn't he? To a late age, as you say. You had him late on, but he carried on. He didn't retire till 2008. He had quite the career.
Yeah. He's quite the player, and obviously very late. You'll see him in that documentary that's now gone out, 99, with the amazing treble. He's quite involved in that, and of course he's off-field stuff with Andy Cole and how he got on there. And, a lot of Man United fans at the time thought he was never going to settle. But, he did go on. As I said, he got Player of the Year at quite a latter age for them as it went on. Because he was sort of supposed to be going in sort of as a quote-unquote sort of replacement for good old Eric Cantona, who was quite big boots to fill at the time. But he wanted that provider player. But Teddy Sheringham, he's always been a great goal scorer for Tottenham. Just a total pro, captain as well for Spurs. I've always enjoyed Teddy Sheringham, and he's always had the same haircut as well, still to this day. Never changed, old Teddy.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. More power to him, keeping his hair exactly the same. 418 appearances in the Premier League, and he scored 146 times, John, which is basically one in 2.5 games, really, roughly. Yeah. He's beaten 1 in 3 there, which is quite a stat. 69 assists as well. You tend to see the goals that he scored, but I mean, 69 assists across 418 games at the top tier in England was something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the assists that I think people tend to forget. I also will say that even for England, a lot of times this was a generation where the Premier League had a lot of good English strikers. Mentioned Cole earlier. But there was, you had Owen, Robbie Fowler, Collymore. I mean, the list can go on and on. But Teddy Sheringham was always Shearer's partner through most of those 90s, either under Venables or Hoddle, because they just liked their link up, and it was that sort of providing that he played a big part into that. So yeah.
The Holland game, me and Chris have spoken about that in the group stage. Them two together on that night, incredible. Do you know what? Do you think I'd be remiss if I say he was a bit overlooked as a player? I think maybe underappreciated, or am I wrong? Are you not thinking he was underappreciated?
I guess in certain circles he is. I would say as an England player he probably has been, because I think he sort of left that. I think we always think of Alan Shearer, and then some people also sort of. I think because Shearer and Ferdinand played a lot together up front at Newcastle, they'll get confused thinking that they were also the combination for England. But a lot of the times, Les Ferdinand never really got a look in for England with Shearer, despite how good their partnership was. I don't know. Is he underappreciated? I mean, he's certainly one of the players you don't hear a lot of, but then he doesn't do a hell of a lot of punditry and stuff like that. You don't see Teddy crop up in those circles. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's just the kind of thing of keeping current. I'm not sure. But certainly at Spurs, he's known as a legend.
Absolutely. I'm going to go into something a bit more current now. Chris, thank you for supplying that. We've kept On This Day in Football going. I hope I've done it justice. Bar putting the photo of Ramon Vega up too early, Chris. I think I did all right. But John sussed it straight away. He's like, whoa, I don't really meant to have that. But hey-ho. Tonight, John, we'll go current, of course. It is the opening game of the season in the Premier League. It's Man United versus Fulham. I've got to be honest, I'm going to go straight to it. I can't see past a United win tonight at home. I really can't. I think Fulham have sold Paulinho. That's a big one. I know Smith Rowe's obviously coming. I'm a bit iffy with Smith Rowe. I think he's injury prone. I think, he could be one of the top players there. I think tonight, I know it's opening day, anything can happen. Form, there is no form, is there? But I cannot look past the United win tonight. How about you?
Well, considering the Man United signings, I think since we last spoke, they made a couple more from Bayern Munich as well. So he's got a massive, he's got to hit the ground running, Ten Hag, because if he gets off to a bad start, and I when I say bad, it probably would consist of a draw as well, I guess. That'll be instant pressure straight away off the bat. He will not want that. Having said that, the first nights, going back a few years, I remember when Brentford first come up, there was that Friday night game against Arsenal, and they managed to, just with the momentum, win it that night. And it's one of those things with the opening day, you never know quite what you're going to get. And I think it's going to be a bit more difficult than maybe what Man United would imagine it will be tonight. So I do think it will be a close game. I don't think it will be a walkover. And the difficulty with Man United is, much like last year, Stu, they've got injuries. Like, again, nothing really settled. I'm pretty sure Ten Hag, since he's been there, has never truly known his best 11. To be honest with you, there's so many, changes and tweaks. McTominay's going, he's not going. Harry Maguire's going, he's still there. They have a big problem, I think, getting rid of players. So I don't know. It's but they've got to do something this year. They have to do something, and they have to hit the ground running, or else I think he'll be under pressure very, very early. But I'll say Man United will sneak it.
I think they've got De Ligt for a good price. All right, De Ligt's come in for a bit of criticism, but again, he came through. He came through the Ajax team very, very young, John, and also I think he still won things. I think, but again, I think it is a good bit of business. I think to get him for under 45 million with the add-ons, I think they've done well. What do you think with that signing? They need a centre back, don't they? As you say, the injuries.
I think if it was any other manager, I'd say it was a fantastic signing. The only thing that's going to hold De Ligt now is because he played for Ten Hag. Man United fans, they go, well, that's his signing. That's another one of Ten Hag's signing, like Anthony, like Martinez at the back. Like, he gets a lot of scrutiny for these players that used to play for him. So I feel like they have added pressure. So De Ligt, as long as he, starts well, I think he'll be fine. But I do think he'll have that. I think the reason he's come under question is because of the track record thus far. However, what it does go to show you, Stu, is that they're backing the manager, because that's definitely one of his signings for sure. It's not a club signing.
The Cup win definitely helped them as well. You know,
Yeah.
he's won the cups. I know
Yeah.
where they finished last year. That's a grey area for the fans, isn't it? You know, they weren't happy about that. But when you look at it, he's won a League Cup, he's won an FA Cup. You know, they want to be top four. I totally understand it. I think that saved his bacon, that cup win. I maintain that, because a lot of people were saying even after the cup win, actually, he is going. So it's make or break this year for him, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, he's got to get off to a good start. I just hope that he gets the opportunity to have a little bit more of a settled team during the season at some point when some of these injuries start to come back. They definitely need to get that. But I think for Man United, one of the biggest complaints I hear from a lot of their fans is they still lack identity. They still lack that sort of, who they are, the style of play of football. He's certainly not playing the way he did at Ajax, but, he's come under scrutiny. But at the end of the day, if you win, who cares what the style is? That's the way I look at it. But, of course, when you're not winning, the style of football becomes a big issue, because it's like you're losing out on both. So yeah, big season for Man United for sure. 100%.
And as it pertains to Fulham, just to give them a bit of a rub here as well. Big season for Silva. Again, they've sold people. They've had people come in. Obviously, I've alluded to Smith Rowe. A fit Smith Rowe is a fantastic addition. I've got my issues with this being injury prone though. Can they keep him fit? If they can, they'll have a good base of the team. But I don't see them being top half. What do you think with Fulham? What do you think will happen?
I'd agree with you there. But I would say I don't see them having a massive relegation issue this season or anything like that. But because I think Silva's, he has made his mark there. I think the problem with Fulham, and he'll know this, is that they're always going to be a club kind of similar to Crystal Palace in many ways, that they're always going to lose some of their best players every year. And then it's just about reinvesting some of that money into hoping that they'll replace it with something better or as equal. And obviously they've been pretty bold making that signing, Smith Rowe. I mean, it's a big signing for them, I would say. In fact, I think it's. Am I right in thinking it's their highest spend for a player transfer? I believe so. They've gone out. They've made a statement with it. But like you say, it's if he can stay fit. I always hear good things about Smith Rowe. He's a workhorse. I think he would turn into a bit of a leader for them as well. But it just depends how much they can get out of him. I think that's the key thing. But Fulham, for me, they're a difficult team to go to. They always have been these last couple of years. I dread when Spurs have to go to Craven Cottage. So I think as long as their home form continues, half decent, I think they'll, they could potentially challenge that top 10.
Muniz, I just trying to think of players here. Muniz, got to be fair to the lad. He didn't look like he could hit a barn door when we played him last October. I poo-pooed him. I've got to be fair. He weighed in with goals, didn't he, last season? It's a big season for him. I think a lot of people will pick him in the FPL as well because he's relatively cheap. They need goals from him again, don't they? Absolutely, they do.
Yeah, and you hope like from Smith Rowe will be another one of those players that can add to it. But they've lost Paulinho. I mean, that's going to be a big miss for them because he was pretty critical in that central area. So that would be the only sort of issue I would have with them this season, how defensively they're going to cope, because he was a massive part of that. So, fingers crossed for them, I guess.
Leno's good in goal as well.
Yeah, he was a good signing.
When you look through the squad, the amount of saves that lad's made and previous, followed him for years when he was at Leverkusen. I always thought it was a weird signing Leverkusen letting him go at the time, but he's very good. The amount of saves that lad makes, he's another one that I always say about, Leno could walk into a lot of teams in the Premier League, if not Europe.
Yeah, 100%.
Looking to transfers as well. I'm going to speak to you about one that you sent to me after this one. There's been a fourth bid today for Marc Guehi. This keeps going on. This has been a topic for several days, even last week. They've come in with a fourth bid, John, which I'm sure you'll know of. 65 million, they reckon. Again, what do you think? Surely that's going to force their hand now, this fourth bid.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, much like you guys at Everton with Branthwaite, I think Crystal Palace, like we spoke about this last week, Joe, I think middle range clubs now. Obviously, in my generation for Tottenham, we spoke last week about how easy it was for big teams to come in for our players, disgruntle them, and then get them for a cut price almost. You know, they just end up having to go. Nowadays, I feel like the clubs have a little bit more power with the TV money that's come in, and it's a little bit more equal. And I think Crystal Palace, I can only see it ever going one way at the end of it, Stu. And I would say even if it comes down to the last minute of the deadline, if it has to happen, it will happen then. But they're certainly going to maximise the amount they're going to get for this guy. You know, they don't seem to be in a position where they've just got to literally, you know, sell him for the sake of selling him to get the money. They obviously clearly don't need it. They've just sold one of their best players, Elise, to Bayern Munich. They've invested 30 million of that back into the club. So I think they're all right. I mean, Guehi, and you know, you wouldn't, even if he stays, that's no harm to them, I would say, because his price will probably be the same next year as long as he has another good season. So I think they hold the cards a little bit more. They also understand how much Newcastle maybe need a defender currently with their injuries, and not only that, the sort of money that they're carrying right now, they'll try and maximise the most out of this. But I do think eventually he will leave.
Again, I've heard about Joachim Anderson. Fulham were allegedly rumoured to be going for him. I mean, if they can keep hold of them two, like you say, Elise's gone. It's a bit of a scenario that Everton had where Onana went, hence Branthwaite has stayed. It's looking like he's going to stay for at least another year. So, again, I think, and they've managed to keep hold of Eze as well. He's always linked. Of course, he's going to be linked with the clubs, but they're not, like you say, they're not being forced to sell, are they? No. They could probably come in with a 70 million bid. They might rebuff that as well.
Yeah. Well, I just think times have changed now, but I think eventually, you know, there'll be one of the prices will be right. It just depends, you know, how quick it's going to get there. But I would say, you know, if it depends how desperate Newcastle are for this deal. Really, that'll kind of say it. But you know, they could easily go in for somebody else if they feel like it's going to go too high. Then they'll go for someone else. But like you say, Crystal Palace so far they've held on to Eze. You know, there's been a lot of rumours about him, but I just think that Crystal Palace, they're not in the scenario where they have to sell them. They're under good contracts. And I believe they did redo Elise's anyway from last year when Chelsea was sniffing around him. So they put in a high clause that Bayern Munich had to meet eventually for that deal.
I wonder what he would have gone for, say he was going to go, if he hadn't have played so fantastically for England. As we spoke about last week. Imagine the lad, you know,
probably can't believe it.
Even Newcastle with all that war chest, they're being careful. They are being so damn careful because of FFP. You know, you can't just throw, you know, 80, 90 million around, can you?
Yeah. I'm sure if Chelsea were after him, Crystal Palace would definitely be playing a different game, because the amount of money they seem to mess around with, it's a different ball game. But
he'd be on a 9-year deal as well.
Yeah.
honest to God. Saying that, Wan-Bissaka, 7-year deal, but I mean, for 15 million, we're not talking like 60, 70, 80 million that they've been churning out for players. Even 100 mil, we've seen them go upwards of 90 million for players. But absolutely. John, news for Spurs today, something that you didn't know about, I don't think, prior.
No.
Of Burnley. So, the news on that and just what's been going on today with that.
Yeah, it's kind of come out of left field. It's very surprising in this modern age that we live in, Stu, with social media and, you know, of course, Romano just coming up with everything before you know it. But this one's been kept very much on the down low. For a long while now, Spurs have been in for a winger. Neto was the name I was hearing predominantly, but I think since Chelsea have, you know, made that crazy offer and deal and whatnot, I think Spurs are pretty much out of the race. So it is odd because he's a completely different end of the spectrum. This is a lad who has had a good season for Burnley. I'm not really a stats person. I've never really have been. But if you look at the statistics, his dribbling is one of the best from last year in terms of his age category. So he brings that. And Ange Postecoglou, he just loves players that will dare to try and, go past a left back, right back from either side. He loves that. He loves them to take the players on. So, yeah, it's kind of it's another youngster. Spurs seem to just be doing this a lot this season. It's been the main thing, other than, of course, Dominic Solanke. We've got now 4 players under the age of 20, but it's big money. It's a lot of money. The rumours I'm hearing about this one, are around the 25-30 million mark. So it's not cheap by any stretch.
He'll give you a bit of versatility as well, because he can play left wing and he can play attacking mid. He can go in the 10, which a lot of these wingers now are versatile and can play just behind the striker as well. You need it, don't you? You need your depth. You need a lot of players in the middle. If you're playing with 5 through midfield, essentially you're going to need cover. You need 2 for each position, don't you? But that versatility, maybe Ange is looking at that with him as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I was at the game last week, sadly, where we lost 3-2. By the way, Harry Kane got 5 minutes at the end of the game to get a rousing ovation, but he still looked unfit for me coming out of the Euros. But in any case, one of the things I took from the game, because I take friendlies with a pinch of salt anyway, but I think the main thing was, other than the promise of Archie Gray, who looked absolutely brilliant, was the fact that Ange will probably be playing Kulusevski a little bit more as an attacking midfielder in the centre rather than out on the wing. So, like you say, Stu, these wingers now, they're like having, it's just almost the second nature for them to now play attacking midfielder. And sometimes you just need to do it during a game. If a game's not going your way, you need to just be able to say to them, right, okay, go through the middle and see if you have any more joy. So, yeah, a bit more versatile.
Are you happy with the squad? Do you think he's done what he's needed to do? I was saying about a bit of youth coming through, or do you think there's sticking points there in that squad?
I guess I'm probably one of the few, but I'm excited about us going back in for youngsters again and rebuilding a longer term project. Because I think the problem was Mourinho. He had a 2-year deal. I don't really think he was ever going to go past that, if I'm honest. Nuno Espirito, when he came in, obviously he only lasted 3 or 4 months, but he only had a 2-year deal as well. Conte was even worse. It was 1.5 years, and he was never going to stick around after it. So I'm pleased with Ange. He's got a 4-year contract, and I think it's almost like he sat down at the beginning and talked them through the stages. And anybody that's followed Ange Postecoglou's career will know that most times it's the second season that things start to happen. So I'm hoping, as long as these are all signings that he's signing off on, I'm happy with that, Stu. I'm not too. I know a lot of people have said, why couldn't we got Ivan Toney? But then again, my question to that, Stu, is why is nobody else going in for Ivan Toney? You'd think he was the one that everyone was going to go for this summer, but in reality, he's not. So I don't think it's just a Tottenham thing. I think that maybe there's been other interest as well.
40 million is a steal. If that is correct, what they're reporting, I know there's only a year left to run, so it would make sense. Again, Bournemouth might not have to sell, really.
No, Brentford.
Sorry, I did it the other week. I did the exact same thing. They were saying Bournemouth.
You know what I think it might be, Stu? I think it might be his contract. I wonder him and his agent, if they're trying to, because obviously this will be his last big contract if you look at his age. I wonder if it's the wages that he wants is maybe the sticking point. Because I know that Daniel Levy's not going to go crazy. And if the rumours are around, because I did hear Simon Jordan on TalkSport, he didn't put it in quite the way, but almost hinting that it would be, 250,000 at least, bare minimum. And, this is a club, Tottenham. We only play Son 200,000. So I just wouldn't see Daniel Levy breaking that and then having to put everyone else up,
When you're talking about 200 grand, which is
poor guy, eh?
You look at what Mbappe's pulling in. You look at what the lads are pulling in at Saudi. Vinicius Junior, this Saudi deal. What was it? It was something ridiculous. It was something ridiculous.
Insane,
I can't remember the exact. It's crazy. I think it's a load of nonsense, to be honest with you. I just think they're reporting whatever they want to report, as you know. But 200 grand. We're throwing that away now as if it's not a lot of money because of what people are getting paid.
Yeah,
crazy,
exactly. But no, answer to your question, I'm happy with what we got. I do think there'll still be another player to come in the middle, somewhere in the central midfield. But other than that, the good thing is with Tottenham at the minute, most of our players are fit. So that's a good thing for the start of the season. Obviously, we've had that little incident, what happened with Basuma. He's been punished by the club, rightly so, for a game I think he's out for. But you know what Ange is like. He's not gonna take too much messing about with him.
And he's gonna let you know. And he'll come out and speak about it as well. When he has to. He gets it. He gets what it's all about, especially with the media. But it's just daft. What these do. It's crazy.
It won't be the last time either. I can tell you.
Zuma kicking the cat. I know we're going back a bit. Ridiculous. I know obviously West Ham won and gone, don't they? But
the craziest thing is the fact that it gets posted.
Yeah,
that's the thing that always gets me. It's like it's already bad enough as it is, but the fact that you post these things for millions of people, your followers, to see is crazy. But
do you like Basuma when he's played? How have you felt he got on?
First season, we didn't see him at all because Conte just wasn't interested. Last season, I felt like he had a really good start. Him and Sarr together were really good, but he dropped off towards the end for me. But the good thing with this season, with Archie Gray, I think it'll push him a bit more now. So he'll have to work for his place, which is not a bad thing. So,
nothing wrong with competition.
We'll see. No.
That's one thing I'll say about Everton in midfield. With what limited money we've had, on paper, we look a lot stronger there. You need your competition. Dice didn't really have it last year. He was having to go with what he went with. I wonder about Dwight McNeil out wide because he's not the fastest. He's not the paciest winger, is he? We need that pace. It'll just be interesting to see. Opening weekend, John. We'll go through it briefly because I know obviously we've got 10 games.
No worries, man. Yeah.
So I'll just pump it in now. Yeah, opening weekend there as well. And I've got the fixture list in front. Obviously, we've spoken about Man Utd, Fulham, Ipswich, Liverpool, John. They're back after over 20 years of not being in the league. Ipswich.
What a way for those fans to start, though, back in the Premier League. Like that's a great game to play your first Premiership game in, back at home, back in the Premier League, to play Liverpool. So those fans will be buzzing for that game. Albeit that it is Liverpool. However, having said that, this is, Slot's first game, so it's like a bit of pressure on him as well. They haven't done a lot of business. We've heard in the week that guy didn't even want to go there, so they may be having difficulties themselves. But from what I've seen of Liverpool in pre-season, they've been very, very good on the eye. I know it is pre-season, but I think he's getting his ideology in early. How long it will take overall, I'm not sure, but it's a great way to start. However, I'll probably say a Liverpool win for me if I'm predicting, but a good start for Ipswich there. I want to see how well they do. I'm quite keen to see Ipswich this season just because McKenna, I really rate him as a manager, and I think he's got what it takes. But it's going to be a hard task for them this year. But you always get one of those clubs, Stu, every now and then that come up, like Sheffield United a few years ago, where that first season, a lot of Premier League clubs can't work them out. It's the second season that always catches up. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ipswich do something decent this year.
I'll go for 2-1 Liverpool. I think they'll just eke it out. Portman Road, I can imagine it'll be a tricky place for teams.
They'll be right up for it.
Got a fervent fan base, as we know. I know they've not been in for how many years now, but it'll be rocking at Portman Road, definitely. Arsenal Wolves.
Yeah, well, as much as I hate to say it, I can only see an Arsenal victory. I just feel for Wolves at the minute because, if you're a fan, you've got to be thinking, blimey, we're selling another one of our best players. Obviously, years gone past, we're always used to Wolves doing these, amazing deals with their agents and the people that are lined up with the club. They've always been able to do that and get those really nice, good Portugal players that we don't hear of until they get here. But I think that'll only take you so far. You always run out of luck in the end with that. And I think this is where they're getting to now. So, I fear for Wolves this year, to be honest with you.
Do you think Gary O'Neill can do it? He did it at Bournemouth on a tight budget. Again, has he finally, once and for all, had the rug pulled under him? Neto going, obviously Max Kilman, who's been, really good. He's been good at centre back. He's been a mainstay. You just can't you think it's a bridge too far now this season for Gary O'Neill? He can't work wonders.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's a really talented manager. Depends what the relationship is between him and the board, and how much of this is known by him before he took the job on. Hopefully it's all been transparent, and he'll be cool with it. But I think just looking around and looking at how everyone else has been bolstering their teams and whatnot, I just fear for the worst. But we've still got a bit of time yet. The window's not completely shut, so you never know. They could still add.
Calafiori, the next Paolo Maldini, allegedly. I read an article.
Well, I don't know about that.
Come
I don't
on.
know about that.
Great. He had all 9 in his arse pocket. Not many did. Even
do you know what? When I used to, and I'm obviously a massive, as I've told you many times, I was a huge fan of Football Italia. The funny thing with Maldini, every time I'd watch him, there was one thing you could guarantee, Stu. Neither the ball or the player was never going to go past him. One of the two was never going to go past him. So if the ball went past him, that man wasn't. And that's how he played every time, did Paolo Maldini. So he was an amazing player for me. Absolute Milan legend. I would. He's got a lot to live up to if he's been compared to him already. I have to say,
it's a big step up for this lad. You've got to think Arteta and recruitment and that they've got him. Obviously Italy got knocked out, didn't they, of the Euros early on, but he looked relatively decent. But again, playing over there and coming in here, it's different. It's not a dead cert, is it, John?
No, it's different.
It might take him a bit of time, but going back to Wolves, I think Sarabia and Cunha are going to be integral to them staying up. They're two of the lads that, when I look at the team, they're two that can do something, and they've got talent, haven't they? But
absolutely.
Yeah. But fair play to Gary O'Neill again, because he's having it
he's
rough.
in another battle,
again, isn't he? I'll let you predict Everton Brighton, okay?
I've got to hear you after. I hope.
How do you feel with this final season at Goodison, of course?
It's a big one. You know what? Before this, I was going to go for an Everton victory myself. I just think, I remember Tottenham when they played at White Hart Lane for the last year. They didn't lose a game, Stu, at home. That was going through a better Man United team back then. Man City, Arsenal, we just didn't lose. We had so much momentum because every time people were turning up to that stadium, it was like you lost. You was making the most of it. And I do think it'll have a big impact on you this season in a positive way. So I think forget last year, Stu, forget the ridiculous points that were being taken. I think actually you might find, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but that stadium thing being a bit of a blessing. And what you'll find is when you get to the new stadium, it becomes a bit challenging again because you've got to make it home. That was a struggle that, I'm only used to it now at Tottenham, and we've been there for a while, but it's just started to feel like it. But there is that cut-off point where you miss it a bit. But it's a good first game. I just think, personally, Brighton, again, they use a model very, very successful at it. You can't deny it. They have done well out of it. For all intents and purposes, who they've got there. They've got another young manager coming in as well. But for me, more than the manager, it's just the structure at Brighton that seems to work. But I do think there's always a glass ceiling with them because I don't think they're gonna push the button and reinvest that money like they sell these players for. Unfortunately, I do see it as a bit of a merry-go-round, and they'll take what they can here and there. And I think that's good enough for Brighton, personally, to be as established as they are now. You would take that, I think. But for me, I'll go for an Everton win, and not just because you're on it, or Chris is probably waiting with bated breath if I don't say the right thing. But no, I'm going to say Everton to win for me.
Pascal Gross, gone.
Yeah.
That's a big loss. That's big.
Yeah, he's got
I know he's still got he's got the likes of Solly March there. You got Milner, but Milner's getting on. He's like my age, slightly younger.
Lallana.
He's been fantastic.
He's well, but they have those players, don't they? And then they have just an absolute flurry of youth sprinkled around it, and that's how they operate. They seem to always have so many wingers. at that club. So yeah, I don't think they're going to have any problems at all this year. But I also just don't think that. I'm sure they've got the money, because you've only got to look at what they've sold off the books,
Massive marker.
especially thanks to Chelsea for a lot of that, I would say. But having said that, they are. I think they're going to be sensible, and maybe they're just biding their time, for when the right move is ready to be made for the big investment to make a jump.
Matoma dropped off as well. I think he'd had injuries as well. My worry is tomorrow. Coleman's out. He's out a lot, isn't he? It's the age thing. It's the age he pulled out.
How old is he now?
He's 35. Is he 35? Wow. Yeah. He's born in 88, so be coming to 36 now. Patterson's out more than he's in. It just hasn't got going for him. He's so injury prone. Ashley Young, I can see Matoma running him ragged, because it's going to be Ashley Young at right back tomorrow. That's my worry. And I think Matoma just needs to kick on again and hit that form for them. He's going to be integral, because he dropped off a little bit and he had his injuries. So my worry is, can Young cope with Matoma when he's running at him tomorrow? That is going to be an area where they're going to focus on, I think, with the new manager.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I think, but yeah, again, with a new manager, that's what I would probably say Everton for me. I just think Dyche is going to be up for it. Your fan, mate, that atmosphere there tomorrow will be amazing. I think all this season, get down there, Stu, if you can.
I'm
get down there for a game. Make sure you get down there.
Can, mate, even if it is a severely restricted view ticket. If I've got two poles in the way, I've got two poles in the way. But that'll be gone. That'll be gone in the new place.
Yeah, you won't have that to worry about.
Newcastle, Southampton, I've only got this going one way. I think Southampton, I just can't see him staying up out of the ones that have come up. I think Russell Martin's got a job on here. I think Newcastle need a big season, of course, but I've got Newcastle, I reckon 3-1 tomorrow. Isak, I can see Isak kicking on.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player. What a player he is. If there was anybody I could take from Newcastle, it'd be him. 100% Newcastle. And Southampton, as you just said, to be honest, mate, when they went down, they weren't looking great that season. They weren't investing. They've come back up. They look weaker than when they went down that season for me. So I can only see problems for them, unfortunately, this season. It's a bit of a shame, because Southampton, for many, many years, this goes back to when Poch was there and a few other managers, they had a similar system to what you see Brighton doing, where they were always able to get away with it, bringing these great players down like Virgil van Dijk and Mane, and they'd sell them off for a lot of profit. But like I say, that luck always does run out at some point, as we've spoken about Wolves earlier. So I think Southampton, I'm struggling to see them be able to stick it out this season, unfortunately.
I think, I'm with you. Newcastle win on that one. Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth. That's got a draw. That's got a draw written all over it to me. Big season for Areola. They did fantastic last season with minimal funding. Obviously, Solanke's gone to you guys, as we spoke about last week. Even Nielsen has come from Porto. Big bit of business for them. But again, can he do it in the Premier League week in, week out? No disrespect to the Portuguese league, but he's looked good in the European games. But that's a big statement of intent, and he could potentially be decent for Bournemouth, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could. I haven't seen too much of him myself, but I will say Bournemouth signings last year were all very good. Like, whoever came in seemed to do pretty well. They bought some young players from the Championship that have come up. I don't know. I just think they've got quite a steady thing going on there. And even without Solanke, I know people say, well, without those goals, where are they going to get them from? But they will get the goals. They're just not going to come in a different way. They're going to find a different way to get them. I don't think the new guy is necessarily going to pull in 20 goals like Solanke did. But that's not to say they're going to have a bad season. I'll actually go out on a limb on this one. I'm going to go for a Bournemouth away win there against Forest.
That'd be good. That'd be good on the old ACCA or as a single bet. Definitely. Yeah. Forest, Elliot Anderson was a funny one, I thought. They've signed him, obviously. He was like 30 plus million. Yeah. Again, they've got to be careful, much like Everton, what they're doing.
Well, I remember when they first come up, they were spending for fun. I mean, I don't know where the money was coming from, but they brought in so many players. So I can only imagine they've got a little bit of a thing backlogged there now with FFP, so they'll have to be careful what they do. And yeah, I mean, I love Nottingham Forest as a club. Obviously, it goes back to the love I had for Brian Clough, so I always look with him fondly. But in this day and age, completely different ball game, obviously, with them. But I don't know. I've got them down to struggle a lot this season. When people have asked who I think will potentially hit the drop, I actually put Nottingham Forest in it as a bit of a spoiler there. So yeah, I do see some. That's just from my opinion anyway at the moment, but we will see. Hopefully, I'm wrong.
And you know better than anyone how Nuno Espirito Santo likes to set up. You've seen it. You know exactly tactically what he's about.
Yeah.
Again.
I don't think he's a rotten manager, but I mean, it's definitely not easy on the eye football, that's for sure. And I think it worked at Wolves quite well because they'd almost come up with it, and I think there's like a different appreciation. But yeah, and like I always say, the playing bad or looking bad on the field is fine when you're winning. It's when you're losing and playing that way is where the problem comes. But we will see.
And then West Ham, Aston Villa. Now, West Ham, we said last week they've been spending, on paper it's looking very good. They made some good signings. Lopetegui's come in. He's got his ideals. He's made his signings against Aston Villa, which it's a massive season for Aston Villa because, again, they're going to be balancing Europe, but they're not in the Conference League this time. They're in the Premier. They're in the Champions League. What do you think with this one? I think this will be tight, this game. I think I might go for Villa. I
was going for Villa as well, not just to copy you, but the reason is I think it will take a while for those players at West Ham to bed in. I don't think it's just they bought a lot of players. I remember Tottenham doing that one year out of the Gareth Bale money, and we were going, Paulinho and Soldado and Capoue, Ericsson, all these players. But when you put them out on a pitch, they just did not look like a team. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Now, that's not to say West Ham are going to have a bad season. I think they will get there. But I just think at this stage, against an Aston Villa managed by Emery, a little bit of good momentum from last year. They had a great season, in my opinion. I never put them fourth last year, so they did really, really well. Ollie Watkins looks like he'll probably have another good season as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go for another away win here for Aston Villa for me.
Another tasty London derby as well, directly below. We've got Brentford versus Palace. As we alluded to earlier, Ivan Toney's still there. They've still got Mbeumo. They've got Visser. That front line, them three together, they're magic when they're on it. I mean, again, it was almost as if Toney's role changed when he came back from the ban. He was assisting a lot more in games. I think a lot of people he'll score the goals, but Visser and Mbeumo, I don't think they get enough praise because they took the load on. They were scoring. They were scoring a lot of goals, man. But again, Philip Glasner's coming at Palace, with essentially Roy Hodgson's players, and they look fantastic. Obviously, no Elise. I've got a 2-2 in mind for this one, though. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Oh, it's a tough one to pick, this one. It's going to be a good game though because they both like Crystal Palace. One of my favourites to watch last season. I just loved the way they just straight ahead once they get that ball past the halfway line. No messing about. And I still think they're going to adopt to that approach. That manager seems like he knows what he's doing as well. I'm quite a big fan of him. It's going to be a tough one, I'll play it safe and I'll go for a draw. But Crystal Palace, I don't know. I was going to go Palace, but I'm going to play safe and go for a draw. But it will be a good game. I guarantee you that.
I like their brand of football under him. I mean, look at him at Frankfurt. Especially in Europa League, they were brilliant the other season. He's a good. I was a bit skeptical about him coming in, but he had an instant impact, and he was able to carry the form on. When a new manager comes in, you have it for like a week or two, maybe, and then it alters, doesn't it? But he had the impact, and he seems to know what he's doing as manager. So yeah, we're both along the same lines with a draw. Chelsea, Man City. I think probably the game of the weekend on paper. A tasty one at Stamford Bridge. I think was it a draw at Stamford Bridge last season? Was it a high scoring draw? If I remember rightly, I'm trying to think back.
I think so. I can't remember.
I think they scored a lot of goals between them in that game at Stamford Bridge.
Battle with the spenders. I think this one. I mean, I'm going to say Man City off the bat for the win for me, even though it's away and it'll be a tough game at Stamford Bridge. But again, it's the same discussion we would have had last year, Stu. Chelsea, another new manager, more dealings, goings on with their signings and whatnot. Still seems to be all over the place, if I'm being completely honest. Apparently, they're still out for a striker as well. You've got this stuff going on with Conor Gallagher, which just seems like an absolute, well, S show of a thing at the moment, quite frankly. I mean, it's all over the place. The fact that he's, reports of him having to come back now, training the reserves until they can get something ironed out. Now, potentially, João Felix could be a solution, but I don't know. Did he set the world on fire when he came in at Chelsea last time? I don't know where that evidence is to suggest let's buy him now. No doubt he's had a great season at Barcelona, but Spain, La Liga, and the Premier League, two completely different beasts. I'm not quite sure it's what Chelsea need, if I'm honest with you. If I was going for that main striker, whether I would really want a João Felix up there. I think, if it was in and around the front three, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I don't know. I think Mariska again. He's going to have his work cut out. Stu. He's got so much stuff to sort out, not just on the field but off the field. You've got this business with Enzo coming back into the team. There's political stuff again with him in the team. A lot of the players, given the stuff he was singing about, they got condemned. A lot of players stopped following him on their social media. So there's a lot of stuff internally at that club that needs to be addressed. Quite frankly, but I don't know. Chelsea, you never know what they're going to get. On paper, you go Chelsea should be a top 3 team with what they've spent, but we know it ain't quite like that at this point. But
how long's Maresca getting exactly?
I don't know.
Surely he's getting time. Surely it's going to be a season, and he's been off. There's too many players. There's too many players. It's crazy. I can't believe it. It was 4-4 last November.
Okay.
The same fixture. So it was, and it was 1-1 at City. It was 2 draws in the league. So yeah,
I suppose having said all that, Man City, they always normally get off to a bit of a slow start. Yeah. So potentially it could be tighter than that. But I think again, Pep, he's going to want this 5th in a row business. I think he really wants the history. And I think he's going to go all out for it this year if he can. And I know a lot of people are saying, how many more times can they do it? But if there is anyone that can do it, would be Pep, quite frankly. And there's no reason to suspect at the moment that it's going to drop off for me, their form. So
I'm with you. I just can't see past them. I just can't. I think Arsenal have added players. Arsenal haven't signed a striker, have they? I mean, and Nketiah is still there. There was talk of him going. So they've not signed a striker. I know they've strengthened in other areas, but yeah, I can't look past City either, John. You just can't. Yeah. I think it'd be criminal for anyone to say it's not going to be City's, leading into this season.
Yeah.
And last but not least,
there we go.
You guys, Spurs away to Leicester. Leicester straight back up, of course, but Steve Cooper is now manager. Again, I think Leicester may find it tough this season. I think.
I have quite a few Leicester fans that I know, and the one thing they always say is that unfortunately, since the owner tragically, he died in the helicopter, like the son that's now in charge, they haven't done a lot of investing as much. Like they don't seem to think the interest is there as much in the club. And I don't know, if you look at what they've come back up with, it's not like they've added a whole lot to it. They've had a lot of players down in the Championship on a lot of money. Like I was reading somewhere that Vardy was still on 140 for a Championship player, and I think there was 3 players in their squad. But it was quite odd when you saw the players that they were. I'm not, to be honest with you, as a Spurs fan, I'm not looking forward to going to Leicester, because I think the fans will be right up for it. This is them coming back. It's a Monday night game as well, and I just got a feeling that the atmosphere could get the better of us at this one, because I know what these games are like in the past when we've had these. In fact, I can go back to many moons ago on a Monday night football when it first started, and we played you guys once in the 90s, and we got absolutely turned over. There was a red card involved, but Yeah, I'm not. I don't like the Monday night games on the first game back. I have to say, especially away. So I'm dreading it a little bit.
You're like me about Everton. You know, when it's your own team,
Yeah.
I think
I've said all these good things about Tottenham up until this point, and when it comes down to it, I can't put it down on it.
I think you'll do it. I think you'll just get over it. I think Steve Cooper's got a hell of a job on, but you know what? He's back in management. Do you know what as well? When the Wales job, when Rob Page went, I thought Steve Cooper was going to be nailed on to take it. And then obviously, then he was announced for Leicester, and then we got Craig Bellamy. You know, he was in with a shout of being Wales manager for me. He really was. But he's back in, he's back in club management. He's had his breaks since Forest, so it's a big season for him, isn't it? You know, they have lost.
Be a return for James Maddison and Harry Winks on the other side. So that'll be interesting. But I would, in an ideal world, Solanke scores. Get him off early. You know what I mean?
A good start. Yeah. I like the fact that the games are spread Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I know you don't particularly want an opening game on Monday, as you've said, but I do like that they've done it from Friday through to Monday. I like that they've done that for the opening weekend, definitely. So, we can't read too much into the opening game.
No, you can't. You never know.
Everyone's trying
Especially with that window open as well. Who knows what could happen till then.
Thank you for that, John. Thank you for
no worries, my friend. No worries.
And what you think about all them games. Now, in closing, we're going to retro for our namesake football then and now. So we're going to the then. And it is obviously players from yesteryear. Now, I put Ramon Vega in earlier, but I'm going to put him back in. I jumped the gun.
The Swiss legend, Ramon Vega.
So there he is. Yeah, he wasn't with you. I'm trying to think how long he was with you, but he scored that goal at Goodison. And I was like,
it's unbelievable that you've. In fact, I've got that shirt right here. This is the one that David Ginola in the background there. But it's unbelievable that you picked Ramon Vega. He was just one of the players that I least liked when I used to go and watch Tottenham as a kid. He was a nightmare. He'd either score an own goal or do something crazy during the game. But I can't completely blame Christian Gross because he came in before Gross. So it wasn't like he just got him in from Grasshoppers. But as soon as Christian Gross came in, of course, being a homegrown country player, he was always his name was always on that sheet, I can tell you, Stu. And it was a lot of times it was him and Sol Campbell at the back. But yeah, he's a little bit more fondness now with him in today. But yeah, he weren't there long, Stu. He was not there long, but he definitely left a lasting impression in my mind, I can tell you.
He put a goal in. He put that bloody goal in. I was sat there, I was in the family enclosure. Chris was with us, actually, and his elder brother and my dad. I always remember it. It was freezing.
I think that's what he was known for Switzerland. He'd come up with a goal. I think that was more like, he was a terror, but he wasn't a great defender. That's the thing. But he could come up with a goal here and there.
He was capped a lot for Switzerland as well because I was watching.
Loads.
Euro '96, he was a mainstay. But I just put a random one into you there.
That is random. But
a man that didn't play as often as he should have done because he had a lot of injuries. But what a centre back this lad was, and he's also employed by Spurs now. Ledley King, I was so fond of Ledley King, and had he not have been injured as much, he was great for England, wasn't he? But your memories of Ledley King?
He's absolute pro. I remember him making his debut under George Graham. He'd come on as a midfielder back then. It was there was him and another lad called Alton Farewell, and we brought them up. And you were kind of like, blimey, I'm surprised George Graham's putting him in because I remember he played against Liverpool for his debut, and he had him as a CDM. And I thought Ledley King was going to turn into a sort of kind of Patrick Vieira type player in that CDM role because he had it about him. He had the legs then. But as soon as the injuries started to creep in, obviously he became more of a centre back, and that's where he'd lost. But what's amazing about him is he could barely train during the week, but yet when he was on the match day, he was on it. Like some of the tackles you'll see him do against some of the best teams was unbelievable. He just had such great timing. Really, really good on the ball as well as off it as well. That's one of his strengths. But he was very good at reading the ball in general. But he was a great captain. Not someone you hear a lot of. He was very modest, very quiet. Still is to this day. Whenever you see him down there, he's still got that about him. But that's a quality I like, to be honest with you, in this day and age. I don't mind it so much when you see someone as humble as that. That's just genuinely enjoying and embracing playing football. I think the tragic thing for Ledley is his England career, because I truly think he did get to go to one of them, but like I think he would have played a lot more had he have been not that injury prone. But he just could not train. I think more than like an hour a day, and that would be every 2 days. Like he just couldn't go on him because his thighs would just get huge and they'd swell, and that would be it. So yeah, but having said that, I mean, what a career he still had, even with that injury. You know what I mean? It's still amazing what he did.
I loved him.
I think speaks volumes. Yeah,
I loved him. I think a lot of fans from other clubs liked him. You say, very unassuming. Got on with his job when he played, and Euro 2004. He was in. He was at the back. He was at the back, wasn't he? He was fantastic. They could have gone all the way that year as well, because I mean they outplayed France when they played France in the group stage. They were better than them. They were, but it just didn't coagulate with it. But he's a club ambassador now, isn't he? Like
he is. He's always there.
At Everton.
Yeah.
So to do a lot of community stuff and.
He's everywhere. Yeah, he was doing some coaching as well. Not that long ago when Jose was there as well. So it's nice to see a player that's been there his whole career then stay on as well. And I think that's what he wants to do. So yeah, good pick there, Stu. Like that one.
Absolutely. And just to close out, we've spoken about this man. We've spoken about him last week, this week, briefly. I'm putting him in. More memories. Here we go. Jurgen Klinsmann.
Oh, Jurgen Klinsmann.
He was fantastic. Put a few away against Everton, actually. I remember.
Yeah. One of my all-time favourites, especially as a kid, because you know what, I think it's fair to say I haven't seen Tottenham ever buy a world-class player since Jurgen Klinsmann. Like that's the last time we've ever gone out and bought in their prime. When we first got him, he was a world-class player. Everybody knew him. He just come out of the World Cup, and Alan Sugar just went, right, let's get a top-quality striker in with Teddy Sheringham. And he was a prolific goal scorer. Obviously, he was only there a year, but what a lasting impression that was just for a year. Obviously, the Jurgen Klinsmann, the dives that he used to do, the opposition fans used to love it as much as we did. That year, going back to another man, our friend Christian Gross from earlier, obviously when we did get in a lot of trouble and our last relegation battle, which was horrendous, we had 5 games on the line. And this was a time where transfer windows weren't a thing, thankfully. So you could just, at the last 5 weeks of a season, go, right, we need to save ourselves. So Alan Sugar went to Sampdoria and brought Jurgen Klinsmann in. I think was going to get paid a massive bonus of around $500,000 if Klinsmann kept us up. And in one game, he scored 4 goals against, I think it was Wimbledon. We won 6-2. And that was the one that cemented that we'd stay in the league. So he did his fair bit. But yeah, I really like Klinsmann. I also like just listening to him since he's become a manager. It's quite interesting to see his tactics. Obviously, he had a big stint at USA, and then another link there, Mauricio Pochettino taking that job very recently going to be there for the Olympics, I'm sure. But yeah, he really, if you look at what he's done in the USA, he's really brought them up to a bit of a level, because for a long time USA were a bit of a joke. But I think even in that last Qatar World Cup, they outplayed us when we were playing them there, quite frankly. So you can tell how leap and bounds they've got. And he had a very recent stint with South Korea as well as an international manager, managing Son. And when he was German manager, he was the guy that went in and basically threw it down, Stu. He was the one that dropped Oliver Kahn, which was a huge thing at the time. But he was getting rid of the old guard, and he was bringing in like Bastian Schweinsteiger and Philipp Lahm and all those generation of players that now. That's what Klinsmann was putting into the German team, and they got another go at it. So, yeah, massive fond memories of Jurgen Klinsmann. He'll always be a legend. I think, sadly, there's always been times, Stu, and you think the amount of managers Tottenham have gone through, there's always been times where his name, anytime we need a manager, his name's always there. I'm kind of disappointed we never got, or might not ever get, you never know, a run with Tottenham, because I do think he'd be one of the ones that gets Spurs.
He's good on the punditry as well because he's been with BBC for years when he hasn't been managing internationally. He talks a lot of sense when he's on there where, a lot of these ex-pros come under fire, but he's when he's done the punditry, especially for the UK coverage, so much history for him within football as a player, as a manager. You could argue as well, he set the tone for Joachim Low when he took over because as assistant, I think he put a lot of stuff in place for them then winning the trophies, after.
Absolutely.
You could make a case for him. But John, thank you for your memories of the players.
Thank you. Taking down memory lane there. A lot of memories coming back, good and bad, I can tell you.
John, thank you so much for coming on.
No worries, my friend.
We're going to have to get you on for the retro and modern goalkeepers episode as well.
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to do that. But thank you again for coming
on. No worries,
on.
My friend. No worries. My pleasure.
Where can the viewers and listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, John Scott with 2 T's _media, and you can find me there, any of my stuff. But yeah, thank you for having me again, Stu. Been good.
Thank you for coming in. Hopefully Chris will be back next week. We wish you well, mate. We hope you get better. And yeah, we will be back next week for episode 25, the 25th edition of Football and Now. And we look forward to the Premier League action this weekend. It's back, John.
Can't wait. Yeah, can't wait. It's been too long.
As much as we had the tournament during the summer, you can't beat domestic football.
Yeah, international football just isn't quite the same for me, to be honest with you, like it used to be. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Cheers, John. Take care.
No
Thanks
worries,
for coming on,
worries, my friend.
Appreciate it. Football Then and Now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.